Here we are. Happy Europe Day, everyone. I do hope you're having a fantastic and wonderful day and enjoying yourselves and etc. etc. But prepare to be shocked for the most hottest of takes, and for a lot of people to get incredibly salty in the chat. I am not joking. There are going to be a lot of very salty people about what I'm about to say. Hey, all I'm going to say is I'm about to say what my position is. I'm about to back my position up with facts. And guess what? If you want to come and talk with me, I am incredibly open about having conversations. I don't know if you've noticed this. My little Yorkshire Rose in the background. I'm incredibly open to having conversations and these types all the time with anyone. If you think what I'm saying is somehow wrong, etc., you're more than welcome to come and tell me to the face, and we'll have a discussion about this. I think in my discussions, I have been incredibly fair. People might disagree with me, but I feel like I have been incredibly fair on every single conversation I've had. Deal with it. If you disagree, then yeah. But let me restate what my position has and always has been: that eventually the UK will rejoin the EU in some way, shape, or form. And that is going to take some sort of process, which we're about to go through, and eventually would be negotiations. That has always been my position. That is always what I have said. And yet, from some quarters, it is treated as some sort of madman. What is he saying? What is he doing? What is this nonsense he is spouting? So, okay, let's take you to school. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take you to some good old-fashioned schooling. But before we do get into that, please do remember to click on the like, the share, and of course the Buy Me Coffee link where you can help buy me coffee. There's the YouTube thank you button. There's the Pony Club down below as well. You can join as well. So, as always, like I say, click on the like and share button, and let's crack on with... Oh, I haven't even set it up. I haven't even set it up. So let's crack on with this. So this is from London for Europe, when they had a professor who's a research fellow for international relationships by a guy named Dr. Paul Burrows. He works as a researcher for the UK Parliament. His expertise is on foreign affairs. So honestly, I have every reason to sort of say, hey, this is my expert. This is who I'm quoting. Everything he is about to say has backed up by my position of what I've always said, that it is going to be some sort of process, that this is the process we are going to go through. And yet, I have been treated like an absolute madman by certain quarters. But hey, so be it. Let's get on into discussing some of this. So, let's begin, shall we? So, we know two things about the UK's return to the EU. It will start with a Prime Minister requesting membership, and it will end with entry into force of a treaty. But what happens in between? Well, what happens in between is what I've said all the time, is going to be negotiations. But, madman over here rocking away in the corner. So, Dr. Paul Burrows provides a very quick overview, then looks at this first part of this process, the assessment of an application. In the second part, he will look at the negotiations over the complexities with EU law that will then follow, and follow the process to its conclusion in the Accession Treaty. So, Accession overview. So, the EU accession process takes an application for being from being unsuitable for membership to being suitable for membership. This treaty is governed by provisions in the Treaty on the European Union, general treaty law, and political embodiment of the political consensus and Commission reports. Note that just as with political positions, if all parties to an international treaty agree, its provisions may be modified subject to any countervailing law. Again, nothing here is should be ground shaking. There is nothing here that is contradicting with what I have said multiple times before. But here we go. So the TEU recognizes this concept of a former member state also wishing to rejoin. This is an Article 50, Section 5, saying if a state has withdrawn from the European Union, asks to rejoin, its request shall be subject to the procedure referred to in Article 49. Article 49 is the standard procedure for new applicants. So, what is this procedure? So, a state wishing to join the EU addresses its application to the European Council, represented by the state holding for the rotating presidency. This council consists of the European Commission that is then part of the main process being discussed below. This then awaits the consent of the European Parliament, and the council may then agree to admit the applicant by unanimous vote. There we go. So a treaty is then signed and ratified, and membership begins on the specified day. So, how do you then go from applicant to candidate? Because this is the big process where a lot of people say, I am talking absolute madness with, quote, Copenhagen criteria, etc., etc. But as we're about to show here, I don't think a lot of people actually know what the Copenhagen criteria actually says, and sometimes what it's actually even applying to. But here we go. So, let's break down this formal process into reality. So, when an application is made to the rotating presidency, it informs the Council and the General Affairs Council. This then approaches the Commission to ask whether the applicant meets the accession criteria. Article 49 sets out some of those criteria. So, first of all, the applicant must be a European state. Congratulations, we're a European state. Unless anyone really wants to disagree and say that the UK is not in Europe. There you go. So it must respect the values of the Union in Article 2 and must be committed to promoting them. And these are non-specific, quote, freedom, equality. Applicants will typically show their commitment to these by membership of the Council of Europe and through being party to other various treaties, such as the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, as well as through domestic legislation. I think we can pretty much easily do that. And if not, I can't imagine there being too much difficulty in making any of these minor changes. Like I say, like it or not, we are an advanced democracy. And as later we will see, if there are any changes we need to make, we can make them. Especially if you've got a government, and in this case, a parliament that does want to sort of rejoin the EU, doing these types of changes would be very, very easily through domestic legislation to achieve. So, in addition, there are the Council's accession criteria, also known as the Copenhagen criteria, adopted in 1993. This is where people really, really disagree on a lot of stuff. But hey, I think we can easily do a lot of this stuff. So, political criteria. This means stability of institutions, guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and respect for protection of minorities. I'd like to point out where does it exactly say that we've got to adopt PR? Now, as much as I want to go to PR, there is nothing in that accession criteria that explicitly relates to adopting PR. Just want to point that out to a lot of people there. So, economic criteria. A functioning market economy. Well, we've got a functioning market economy. And, of course, the capacity to cope with competition and market forces. Yep, we've got that. We have that. Like it or not, we have that. We have a market economy. and we can cope with competition and market forces very, very easily. So, the final one is the administrative and institutional capacity to effectively to implement the Accession Comitaria and the ability to take on the obligations of membership. I think we can do that considering we've already been a member of the EU. I think we've got that, that capability. So these political criteria are now regarded as being incorporated into the TEU and the Charter on Fundamental Rights. See, e.g., the Commission operation on Croatia's application on the 12th of October 2011. The Copenhagen criteria were designed with the former communist states of Central Europe and Eastern Europe in mind. And this is where it gets fun, because this is where everyone criticizing me falls apart. I want to read this loud and clear. Make note. They do not amount to the Commission writing every detail of human rights law or the electoral system of the applicants where it lacks competence. So I want to point this out, that the Commission does not rewrite anything of electoral systems or anything of details of human rights law whatsoever. They have absolutely no evidence that, for example, the UK would be forced to accept PR. Now, again, I want PR. I want to get there. But there is nothing that if we were in our current system to reapply to the EU, that the EU would force us to do that. Because at this point, you are then saying that the European Commission goes in and is going to forcefully rewrite our electoral system. So again, I'm right on that. So I wonder how many apologies I'm going to get in the chat over this. Anyway, so they are then checked with that applicant state is then a suitable free market democracy with full control over its territory and institutions, so that EU law can then be implemented in practice. Again, congratulations, we are a market democracy with full control over our territory and institutions. EU law can be implemented. Job done. So Article 49 also states that these eligibility conditions shall be taken into account. The Council stated at Luxembourg in 1997 that while the political criteria are a prerequisite for opening negotiations, the economic and administrative criteria must be assessed in a forward-looking, dynamic way. The present collusions of paragraph 25 of the European Union Council back in December of 1997. So at this stage, the Commission is addressing whether the applicant is suitable not for membership, but for negotiations towards membership. So this whole idea that we would be turned down immediately, that I've often seen in chat, is just non-existent. Non-existent. And once again, negotiations towards membership. As I've always said, negotiations are going to happen in some way, shape, or form. They will take place. And yet, that is treated as if, unless you are, quote, not ticking all these boxes, that ain't going to happen. The reality is that no country's accession for the EU has been in a set formalized standard. There have always been exceptions to this of how different countries have been accepted. And again, I want to point out, we are not a former communist Eastern Europe or state, going through these different things to apply to join the EU. So I think a lot of these are very, very achievable and very, very doable. Should the EU decide that it wants to make any changes, anything like that. But as for our political system, Yeah, I disagree. First past the post. I wouldn't like to, keep it. I'd like to change. But if we are in a state where we still do have first past the post, the EU Commission is not in the business, as it's just stated above, of rewriting electoral systems of the applicant. So there you go. So the Commission then makes its recommendations either to grant the candidate status or to ask for changes on the basis of the specific assessments against the various criteria. The candidate recommendations need only be approved by the GAC and the European Council unanimously in order then to proceed. After this, the applicant will then become a candidate for membership of the EU. And it should not be a stretch for any developed democracy to actually satisfy the treaty and Copenhagen criteria. It is unlikely that a UK intent on rejoining would encounter difficulties. An exception would be if it had left the European Court of Human Rights, but it is a reasonable assumption that in that case, a rejoined government would wish to accede to the European Court of Human Rights in any case, which is very swift. All I'm going to say is, hey. um, but hey, let me know what you think. And hey, if you want to have a discussion about any of this, get in contact. But you've just had it there by an expert in international law and a researcher. This is what he does as his job. Pretty much what I've been saying since the beginning. That there are going to be a process and there's going to be negotiations. But hey, there you go. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, do hit the like and share button. And of course, we'll see you down below. We'll see you down below in the doobly doos. And of course, leave a comment as well. And we'll see you all next time.